One of Hollywood's best-loved comic actors, Gene Wilder, has died at the age of 83 from complications from Alzheimer's disease. He starred in classic comedies like The Producers, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. But for a whole generation of children, he'll always be the chocolate maker Willy Wonka, who he played in the film version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Well, Tom Geyer is managing editor of The Wrap and joins us now from Los Angeles. I mean, he's known to most people as a comedian, but he saw himself as a serious actor. Just talk us through Gene Wilder's career.
Well, Gene Wilder had a remarkable career, and he always looked at himself not as a clown, but as an actor in a more serious mold, and got his start on Broadway in a Bertolt Brecht production where he met Anne Bancroft, and Anne Bancroft was dating Mel Brooks at the time, and that's how he first was introduced to Mel Brooks, and they had a great collaboration over the years. But although he's known for his comic roles, his very first on-screen appearance in a film was in Bonnie and Clyde, and he had a memorable appearance as a sort of Depression-era undertaker who's kidnapped by Bonnie and Clyde and has a sort of hysterical reaction that provides great comic relief in that classic film.
I mean, the tributes have just been pouring in on social media. Jim Carrey, Steve Martin, Billy Crystal, Deborah Messing, so many people who say that he influenced them and really pouring out their hearts about the loss of him. Just tell us about the influence and the impact he had.
Well, he was one of the very first comic actors to get an Oscar nomination for a comic role in The Producers in 1968. And so, for that reason alone, I think there are a lot of people like Jim Carrey who really look up to him. And again, he really always grounded even his over-the-top comic performances in something that was much more human and grounded in reality. He really saw himself as a kind of serious actor who just happened to be saying these comic lines. And so you see that again and again, even in silly movies like Young Frankenstein, where he really sort of injected a kind of a groundedness in the performance.
I mean, it's so interesting that you say that he sort of saw himself as just this serious actor saying these comic lines. I remember him paired up with Richard Pryor a lot of the time, and that was kind of the counterbalance, wasn't he? Richard Pryor was the really sort of over-the-top one, and he was much more sort of, deadpan's the wrong word, but much more sort of just delivering the serious, the straight man, really.
Yes, he very much enjoyed playing the straight man, and he had that distinctive look, the kind of crop of unruly curly hair and the deep blue eyes and the sort of scrawny gait, and the contrast that he managed to strike, whether it was with Marty Feldman in Young Frankenstein or Richard Pryor in films like Stir Crazy, provided much of the comedy just from seeing him on screen and the contrast there.
Tell us about the Willy Wonka role. It wasn't a huge success, that film, when it came out, but he is known for that for a whole generation of children, isn't he?
There is a whole generation of children that has grown up on that film and grown up with that performance. And, he kind of had this injection of the Roald Dahl spirit in that film, the kind of the dark energy that you don't ordinarily associate with children's movies, certainly not with Hollywood children's movies at the time. And I think that's part of the resistance why it wasn't a box office hit straight away, but came to be a much beloved role because he had that quality that you gravitated to as a child, but when you watch the film again as a grown-up, you realize that there was much more depth there and much more darkness there.
I mean, you talked about his comedy, his more serious roles, the role as Willy Wonka. What's a standout performance for you that he'll be remembered for?
For me, I think I just sort of came of age with that Willy Wonka role. And again, it's a film that you go back to again and again because you look at it with different eyes as a grown-up and you realize how devilishly witty he is in kind of injecting that kind of macabre streak into it. But then I look at a film like Young Frankenstein or Blazing Saddles, and you see just sort of how over the top he is. And Young Frankenstein, he got an Oscar nomination for co-writing the script with Mel Brooks, and there's something just deliciously wonderful about the way he pays homage to a whole genre and yet upends it at the same time.
Tom Geyer, thank you so much, managing editor of The Wrap paper. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Well, we've been remembering the actor and the Broadway producer Gene Wilder, who has died at the age of 83.